Classical Conversations presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortons, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Refining Rhetoric. Today, I'm super excited to have my friend Clarence Henderson on the show. In 1960, on the second day of the Greensboro sit-ins, Joseph A. McNeil and Frankie McCain joined William Smith and Clarence Henderson at the Woolworth lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. That was just about 30 minutes from where I grew up, but about 25 years earlier. But Clarence has been on the forefront of the civil rights battle, and he's bravely stepped in to participate at the Woolworth Diner. And in 2000, Mr. Henderson was a recipient of the 40th Anniversary Sit-In Precipitant Award. And in 2013, he was appointed by Governor Pat McCrory to the chairman of the seat of the North Carolina Martin Luther King Jr. Commission. And he, in 2016, was awarded the Order of the Longleaf Pine Award and the rank of Ambassador Extraordinary. Mr. Henderson was appointed the president of the Frederick Douglass Foundation for the state of North Carolina in May of 2017. And presided over that post until September 30th, 2023. He's also served on the advisory board of Black Voices for Trump from 2019 through 2020, and he currently has founded the Clarence Henderson Education Foundation. And he is a champion of freedom and conservative values. Clarence now advocates a new cause for a better America by challenging, motivating, and inspiring others to be aware and responsible for the world that surrounds them. So, Clarence, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
You're quite welcome, and I'm delighted to share information with you as such in order that people might become more aware of how we can change things.
Yeah, so you have been a change agent nearly all your life. That probably wasn't what you set out to do. So can you take us back to the early 60s and kind of walk us through the Woolworth lunch counter experience and what were your emotions and thoughts during those times?
Well, one of the, I guess you would say I'm an unusual individual because I never dealt with politics as such. What I dealt with was everyday life that I dealt with, and I used to go in Woolworth when I was a kid growing up with my mother, and upstairs you had the lunch counter, obviously, and you would see white people sitting at the lunch counter, but no blacks. Then you go downstairs and you would see two bathrooms, one in color, one in white, and two water fountains, one in color, one in white. And I used to look at the water coming out; they looked the same, and I wonder what the difference was. And the difference was the way of thinking as far as individuals are concerned. But what actually happened was that when I walked in the Woolworths that particular day, things changed dramatically for me because I understood I was walking in for a different purpose, and I didn't know how I was going to come out in a vertical position, handcuffs, going to jail, or a prone position, going to the hospital, to the morgue. So it changed my perception of what life is all about. Those were exciting days, but I had been prepared for it all my life, even though I didn't know that I had been prepared for it.
Yeah, so what prompted it? I mean, we know that the racial division and stuff like that, but what prompted that action on that day?
Well, actually, this had been a plan going on for the original four guys that started the movement, and they all stayed on campus. So I found out about it on the second day. So I was not privy to the planning stages of it. What happened was that there's a guy by the name of one of the original four, by the name of Ezel Blair, that we started out in the first grade and went all the way to A&T together. And so he came down to the lounge on that particular day, February 2nd, and told me what they had gotten started, and asked me if I wanted to participate, because the idea was to go back to campus and recruit more people. And so what the things that led up to was that, you in Greensboro, I'd be walking down the street, minding my own business in different places, and the N word was always used. They would call the N word, cars riding down the street. So I've been exposed to these things all my life. And I guess subconsciously, when I got an opportunity to stand up for what I believed in, then that's what I did.
So were you arrested that day? Did you You obviously didn't go to the morgue, so yeah, tell
Uh,
us what
for,
happened when you sat down.
Fortunately, I was never arrested. What happened? We caught Greensboro by surprise. And I can remember sitting there at that lunch counter on February 2nd, and the policeman walks in. He just stands there for a while, and we're not doing anything except sitting on the stool. And I guess he just decided that he didn't know what to do, and he just eventually left.
Mm,
But what happened when various days we were sitting there, and all kind of names were called. People want to know why we were sitting there. What was our purpose? What are we trying to prove? All kinds of things happened. As a matter of fact, as we progressed through it, there was a bomb threat there. KKK came in, and actually on one side of the street, what you had was people that were for what we were doing, and on the other side of the street, when you went outside, people on the other side of the street were against what we were doing. But
mm,
as I said, I was prepared for it because I was raised up in a very rough neighborhood in Greensboro. And you
yeah.
know how it is when new kids come into the neighborhood, especially it was three of us, three brothers, and I had to fight just about every day.
Mm,
So I learned how to physically take care of myself, and now that physical has moved to spiritual, and so I stand strong on the things that I believe in because I believe without a voice you don't have anything.
right. Amen. Yeah, it's really important. I mean, he gives us a physical body, and we're here to do his work. But ultimately, we have a soul and a spirit that is going to live with him forever if we have Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior.
Yes, because you can actually judge when you look at the physical side of it, you can judge by your opponent because you can see him. But the spiritual things that we're dealing with now, you can't see them, and so you have to understand what drives people to do things, what causes evil, and all those kind of things. And I've had a better understanding since I've uh, become an adult. But I didn't do it for any notoriety. I did it
Mm,
because I thought it was a thing to do. And I tell people all the time, they say, "Well, how did you go through it?" I said, "Well, actually, that was just a part of my life because that's not what who I am. It's it's something that I did."
right. Yeah. So tell us, like, after that, I mean, obviously, we've got 60s and 70s and 80s. Did you stay involved in the civil rights movement, or did you go on to work a quote unquote regular job? Tell us about yeah, after those events.
Um, as I thought back over, because as I dealt with these various things, I wasn't thinking that much about it. But I'm here on assignment. I am convinced of that. I've always been on assignment because I've been called into so many things, adversity things, and had to deal with. Because what actually happened with me was that after the first year, I dropped out of A&T because my parents could not afford to keep me there. And I
Mm,
worked for a while in Greensboro and then decided that I wanted to, I always wanted to go see the Big Apple.
mm,
So I moved there and said I was never coming back to Greensboro again, except to visit my parents, but God had other plans for me. And those other plans was eventually I got drafted into the military and came back south again and went through all these things again. Wound up 16 months at Fort Worth, Alabama, when George Wallace was the governor down there, if you can imagine that.
woo.
So I've had all these kind of things. Actually, when I was in New York, when a riot broke out there, although I didn't participate in it, I saw the difference between a peaceful movement and a riot. And a lot of people don't understand the difference. Like in 2020, what we had riots. Those were not peaceful movements. A lot of people don't want to hear me say that, but unless you are blind, you can see what went on during that time. And it's been such a journey for me. I am delighted that I was picked to be a part of the movement because
Yeah.
what has happened is that, and we still deal with it today, is that one of the first things we judge a person by is what we see on the outside. But it's not what's on the outside; it's what's on the inside that counts. And as Dr. King said, unless we learn to live together, brothers as brothers, we'll perish together as fools. And so, this country is our country to save or for it to lose. But mine has been a natural progression in that I don't care what. If you want to look at it from the standpoint of judging by the race, black, white, red, or yellow, there's always a hierarchy there. There's a hierarchy in the black community, white community, and all the other communities. And I was in the low end of the totem pole, even in the black community, because my parents actually were uneducated. Uh, my father had a great skill set with his hands because he's a mechanic, but in school I was seen differently because my father was not among the quote unquote society that people thought were the best of society. And so I have learned that adversity teaches, prosperity does not teach you anything. And so through adversity, this general adversity, I've learned to stand up for what I believe in. And actually, what has happened is that I've never actually volunteered for it. It's always been brought to me.
Mm. Well, the Lord brings some of the toughest challenges we have
Mm-hmm.
to some of His strongest warriors, and I know you're a prayerful man in the Bible daily. How have you seen, you know, the civil rights movement change? You just talked about, mostly peaceful protests, as CNN called it, versus the riots in 2020. Why is that important? That the as we are change agents. I mean, there's things that I think all of us want changed in our country, that we do it about a peaceful way versus a violent way.
Well, unfortunately, there are so many people in this country that do not understand how America works. They're not equipped or experienced in our childs of freedom, such as uh, Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. So it's through due processes you get things accomplished, and we're yet to learn that. We see it across all spectrums. What we have is that instead of us sitting down and looking at how we can make things better, we're constantly at each other's back. And this is the greatest country in the world. Imperfect? Yes. But what is happening now is that they keep bringing up racism because it's money to be made with racism.
Mm,
And one of my favorite quotes is that if America's so racist, why are people dying to come here but nobody's dying to leave? As a matter of fact, the people that are trying to get out of here, they don't want to. They don't want to leave. They want to stay here. So the people, you get used to things, and we have such a great life in America compared to other countries because you have to compare us with other countries, and we just take it for granted, and we think it happens automatically. But freedom is not free. The price you must pay for it. You must pay for it up front before anything happens. And then the other thing is that the history of this country, they're trying to destroy the history because
yeah.
what has happened is that I run into so many people that don't. And when you mention Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, or whoever, they don't even know who he is except the holidays or whatever that happened during those times. And so, history's a great teacher. And I'm one of those guys that really sort of caught up as I got older because those kind of books were not available to me when I went to school.
Mm,
And a lot of things that drove me is that as I look back on it, never went to an integrated school. What actually happened was that I grew up in a black neighborhood, and when my parents moved over by you, maybe you're familiar with UNCG, which was Women's
yeah.
College at that particular point in time, and we lived in what was called a cul-de-sac, except it was a dirt road,
Mm,
and we were surrounded by white families, and their kids used to come and play sports with me. The parents didn't know about it, so I began to understand that people are not born racist. It
mm,
happens through an accumulation of ideas, accumulation of ideologies people come across. So, for me, education is the most important thing. People need to
yeah.
be educated to understand that, as Dr. King said, it's not about the color of your skin, but about the content of your character. And so, I look at what character's all about because you can see a guy in a three piece suit and he's a crook, and you
Mm,
can see a guy with bib overalls on, and he's a very honest individual. And so where we are right now is the results of what happened in the past. Because now the other thing is that what happened with the civil rights movement is that we stopped too soon. We walked away from the table, uh, and did not, and thought we mistook the end, beginning for the end, to continue
Mm,
the negotiations. So we went home. It was actually a lot of appeasement because we thought we had accomplished something we had, but we had not finished the job. So as a result, the civil rights movement has not progressed that much. It's gotten worse because we don't
right.
understand what we've been fighting for. Um, for example, it says that the Constitution gives us rights. It doesn't give us rights. It recognizes our rights. We've
Mm.
always had those God-given rights, but when you look at the philosophy of man versus what you look at what man says, what God says, then you get caught up in a lot of things that are not true. So for me, the journey continues.
Yeah, so I want to unpack a couple of things. Obviously, some of today's uh, actions or inactions are because of our past decisions. Obviously, America, like you said, isn't perfect. As we get confronted with some of these imperfections, a lot of it does, center around race for some reason. What How should we look at it? What is the proper conservative and Christian response to being a flawed country, but not having arrived yet, recognizing that, but trying to move forward in a productive manner?
Well, we first have to call a situation for what it is. Is like when you look at perception, is that perception a reality or is that a perception within you? Because you hear all the time they talk about my truth. There's no such thing as my truth. It is the truth. And so when we begin to look at it objectively, we have to realize that the freedom that we have in this country, freedom, liberty, and justice we have in this country has to be continually defended, and we're not doing a very good job about it. We're talking about all these other things about the makeup of a person, what his persuasion is, and all these kind of things. Those are personal things that people have to be concerned with. I'm concerned with whether or not we will remain a country or not. And so, what we see with leadership today, with a few exceptions, it's the results of what is happening in our educational system. So, our educational system has failed us, and we keep throwing good money after bad because we should be looking at classical education, how to teach the whole person, just not one thing, because it's not about necessarily how smart you are. It's what kind of values you hold within yourself, what kind of character you have, what kind of moral turpitude you have. Because America will always be judged by the content of its character. And when you look at what has happened over the last 4 years and even in times past, is that when we don't understand how America works, America's a free economic uh, system, but most people don't understand that. So therefore, they're saying socialism, communism. None of those things have succeeded. Have individuals been able to succeed in that? It's only capitalism. And my concept, my motto is to compete rather than compare, because
Mm,
you look at all the various things, and again, I think the best teacher is sports. You
yeah.
have a team that's supposed to be a great team. But when you get on the on court on the football field, it's who plays the best game. So life's the game, and may the best person win. This idea about everybody getting a trophy, something's wrong with that. There's no
Mm,
competitiveness. We have to learn how to compete. That's what has made America great. Is that when I go back and I look at what our the founders did and what they went through, those men that signed the Declaration of 56 million signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing they were signing their death warrants of court. But right now, we're so thin skinned that, for example, see somebody write Donald Trump's name on the sidewalk, and what do? I got to go see a psychiatrist. Well,
yeah.
and most people are not going to be that much affected by him. Where we're affected is locally because they make decisions in D.C., and it's whether or not the state of North Carolina how they carry them out. And so
Hmm.
it's just like with Woolworth. Woolworth was a public facility. Everything in there was equal for everybody except the lunch counter and the bathrooms. You could purchase any person go in there if you had the money to purchase any item that was there. But when it came to the lunch counter, we could purchase the food, but we had to have purchase to go. When you went down to the bathroom, use the bathroom, but both bathrooms the same. You just had a sign up there, one saying one different and one from the other. The same thing with the water fountains. So
Mm.
again, perception has become a reality for too many people. And see, we cannot allow our emotions to cause us to lose our common sense. That common sense value is that we're cutting off our noses to spite our faces because simply because I don't like what a person looks like, I don't know what they said, but the truth will set you free. It takes longer for the truth because the truth never gets in the way of a good story. So we hear so many opinions and you have to it's not opinions like noses. Everybody got one, but
Yes.
I don't know if you heard it. If you're familiar with a guy by the name of Marvin Gaye,
Yes.
singer. I think about this all the time. The song I heard it through the grapevine, and he said,
Mm.
"Believe half what you see and none of what you hear. You have to go and check it out for yourself. Otherwise, you will not find out the reality of it. That's why we're going through what we're going through right now because." You got
Mm.
people in this country that are willing to destroy this country, which will destroy their freedom simply because they don't like the way it's going.
Hey everyone, interrupting today's episode to tell you about classicaltoolsforchange.com. If you need support, encouragement, and direction navigating the world of transcripts, classicaltoolsforchange.com is your one-stop resource. They offer classes, coaching, and consulting. They have a variety of online, both live and on-demand classes that employ the tools of learning, and Tools for Transcripts is just one of the classes they offer. And as a child of God, invest in yourself because you are worth it. Schedule an appointment for coaching services like crafting transcripts. Engage with their experts, and they have resources like newsletters, blog posts, and a podcast called The Worker Bee Podcast. Replenish, restore, and reignite your heart as a homeschooling parent with Tools for Transcripts. Classical Conversations families receive 10% off using the coupon code 10OFF4CC. That's the number 10 off, the number 4CC. To learn more, visit classicaltoolsforchange.com. That's classicaltools, the number 4, change.com. Now let's jump back into the show. Absolutely. You talked a little bit about perception versus reality. And, before Barack Obama was elected president, I think the perception in the United States was that race relations were the best they'd ever been. They're going in the right directions. People like me who didn't vote for Barack Obama thought, hey, I don't agree with his policies, but maybe this is that final step where we really achieve this, based on the content of our character instead of our skin color. And since his presidency, it's just kind of gone down. The perception, at least, has gone downhill, and a
Hmm.
lot of that because of
Well,
what they're putting
well, guess
through the.
what? I didn't vote for him either. I never thought I'd see a black man become president, but I knew who he was, and so that caused me to make that certain decision because when I first started voting, I voted Democrat because I was told to vote Democrat. Did not do any research whatsoever. So I'm optimistic because if I got it, and a lot of other people can get it because I can remember like when I graduated from A&T, we never discussed politics in in my parents' house. I was sitting there
Right.
talking to my father, and I started telling him about the Democratic part of this and Democratic part of that. And he sat there very quiet and he listened. And I remember what he said to this day. He said, "Son, you don't know your history." He said, "You don't know what the Republican Party has done for us as a people." And because I had the degree and he didn't, I felt like he didn't know what he was talking about. It took me 25 plus years before I went and did my own research to begin to find out how important the platforms are, how to vet, how to begin to understand how the system works. Because, see, um, and the best example I can give you is at McDonald's versus Burger King.
Mm.
McDonald's system gets you out faster than anybody else because they have three line. When a line gets three deep, they open up another line. So the whole
Mm.
idea is to get you in and get you out. So we have to compare and I'm saying also say about slavery, for example. America did not start slavery, but it ended it as far as
Mm.
on the books. but we still have to defend it. So right now we keep talking about racist country, and see, I have been through so many different things because my middle brother was in the Navy, and he went overseas a lot of different places. And this is before I was. He was before me, obviously. And he said something to me one day that always stuck with me. He says they always talk about how racist America is, but he said in some of these countries I see a guy with his hand cut off, his foot cut off because he stole something. So
Mm,
you can take anything and put it out there and make it look one way, when you begin to do a comparative analysis, what does one side compare to the other? Because I look at one organization, one party versus the other party, and for some of the things the Democratic Party stands for, I cannot consciously vote for those things because they're not right. Because the most important thing we have is life. If you don't have life, you don't have anything. For
right.
example, you know, since 1960. About 1960, there were like 20 million blacks in this country. Since that time, they've had over 20 million blacks that have been aborted. So we have been
Wow.
indoctrinated to believe that that's probably the best course of action. And a part of that is how the black man was driven out of the household when they came up with the welfare system, which said the man couldn't be there for the woman to get the welfare check. And so what has happened is that the for a lot of women through these years, the government has become their husband, and
Hmm.
look to that as opposed to looking at how God set this thing up. He said family first. And so there are
Amen.
a lot of different things that we begin to open our minds up and look at and have a paradigm shift and begin to look at things objectively. We'll see America a whole lot different. I would love to take all those individuals into some of these foreign countries and have them take a look at it, at those foreign countries, and see what they think about those.
That's great. Yeah, I think people, whenever I go overseas, which isn't as much as I used to, I mean, it is very different. The perception in our media, what it's like in Europe or these other countries versus reality is very different because that's where they're trying to push us, and that's not where we want to go. You have this education. I want to start switching over there. I've seen a lot of studies that show something around 30% of kids in school can read at grade level.
Hmm.
You talked about needing to know your history. Well, it's really hard to know your history when 70% of people can't even, pick up a history book and
Hmm.
read it if they wanted to. So, yeah, tell us about this latest focus for you, the Clarence Henderson Education Foundation. What's its mission? What are some of its goals? And how are you trying to impact the nation?
The foundation is to teach people moral values, to get them to begin to understand that you should do unto others you would have them do unto you. So we're looking at it from the standpoint of we have been, going, especially the younger kids, not to leave the older people out, to get them to understand how important it is to value the lives of other human beings because uh, they're not teaching that in our educational system, and our kids get locked in. And here's an analysis I came up with. The reason why I'm doing what I'm doing because when you try to go into the school system, it's hard to get in there because of the policies they have. So for me, first they wouldn't let us, and when it comes to education, first they wouldn't let us in, and now they won't let us out because you have some of these educational systems that are failing kids. They're doing a social passing, and the kid gets out and he can't make a life for himself. So what does he do? He turns to crime. Right now, you have even think that history is not a requirement. Civics is not a requirement. So people don't know how a bill becomes. Kids don't know how a bill becomes a law, and cursive is not a requirement. So if you put before them the Declaration of Independence or any of those uh, uh, Charles of Freedom is in cursive, they can't read it.
Yeah.
And so one of the things they fought for was to keep the black man from knowing how to read. And so now we got to the point that a lot of times these kids sit in class and it's not smart to learn how to read. And they want to call a kid sitting there trying to learn something, they're going to call him a nerd. And so
Hmm.
the country has allowed the governmental system to enslave them.
You're talking about cursive. I remember watching, growing up, some of these old like Civil War movies or slave movies, and a lot of times, the students, the enslaved individual would be told to sign something, and since they hadn't taught them how to read, they hadn't taught them how to write, they say make your mark, and they make an X or something like that on their paper as their mark. And I mean, quite frankly, our modern education system is doing the same thing because they're not teaching kids cursive. They're not teaching them how to, read cursive. For I believe the issues that you're bringing up now is, I mean, not it's just not African American kids or slaves now, even Hispanics, whites, all the colors of the rainbow, that God made, are now having to make their mark, because they don't even know how to sign their own name. And
Hmm.
if that,
And I've met some sharp young men as of late who could barely write their name.
Mhm,
So it's no longer education; it's indoctrination,
right,
and they've handicapped the teachers to a great extent by requiring them to teach certain things. And so I'm
mm,
delighted to see the opportunity schools where you have a chance to compete against uh, um, the public schools, see which one comes out the best. So if we
right,
don't change our educational system, uh, America can be taken over without a shot being fired because we have been appeased to believe that we should be looking at social issues. And for me, it's not, it's either just or it's unjust. Never
right,
mind the color of a person's skin or anything like that. It's either right or wrong. And when you deal with it from that point of view, you cannot accept. It's like people say, well, okay, as of late, uh, a certain person can commit a crime, and it depends on what it looks like, as to whether or not he'll be punished for it or whatever. It's like with the illegal aliens, and that's what they are. And so they haven't broken the law. When you cross the border illegally, you've broken the law. There's no way
mhm,
around it. Because normally how people start off is doing misdemeanors and graduates up to capital cases and those kind of things. So when you start to destroy the integrity of a country, then things begin to go south. And see, a lot of people don't want to get in the way of the truth of a Donald Trump, for example. Now, for me, Donald Trump reminds me of my drill sergeant.
yeah,
Tells you what you need to hear. It may not be pretty. It may be a few words in that you don't want to hear, but all I want to know is just tell me the truth. Because if I
mm,
once I hear the truth, then I know which direction to go in. And so where we are as a country right now, again, we are so busy fighting against each other that we don't realize. And something you said a few minutes ago, like some people are so destroyed to see roots. I was not destroyed because it showed the facts. What
right,
what caused me to see things? Some people had fun with it, like Amos and Andy. That's not reality. So just as Frederick Douglass said, and and that's a whole other story about the different names we've been given. Says, what do you do with the Negro? He says, leave him alone and he'll figure it out. He will. But the government
mm,
keeps coming in and saying, if we don't help you, then you can't get through it. But what does it say about, like for example, this DEI situation? I
right,
would hate to
exactly,
have a doctor operating on me and it operated on me because they gave him a degree based on the color of his skin. I still stand a very slim chance of surviving. So, um, and one of the good fortunes I have, I know I'm going back and forth different ways. One of the great things that happened in my family is that my mother and father never ever discussed politics. They was too busy trying to make a living for their family, and I never heard either one of them say any bad thing about any white person. So I was
mm,
fortunate in that way. And I was fortunate to be born into a household where you had husband, wife, and kids. Because my father worked 6 days a week, didn't smoke, didn't drink, never heard him curse, And my mother, basically, all she ever worked was a part-time job. He knew it was his responsibility to take care of his family. So now, what we have things we're addressing right now is uh, uh, calling manhood something other than what it is, toxic. And nothing toxic about a man. A man acts like a man. I mean, if he acts like a man, he doesn't act like a woman. And so we're trying to decide now something which is ridiculous, which says that a woman can be a female, can be a man. That's one of the latest judges there, when they asked it was just Supreme Court justice. She, excuse me, says she could not, that she was not a scientist. She couldn't determine what a male or female is. I could not sell myself out for any amount of money to make that kind of statement. It's just not right. So we
Yeah.
have to come out of uh, uh, um, the vacuum and come into reality. Call a thing what it is, and then you can deal with it. We're so busy calling things other than what they are and trying to force acceptance. For example, what they try to do in the military. Uh, the military is for to defend the people of the country. And when you have people that don't know who they are, how are they going to defend us? And so we have these challenges. We have to have people like yourself that gives that has a podcast that can share different views, and people like myself that are willing to say what they believe to be the truth, and put that message out there. And as you said, we begin to see the difference because the biggest thing that Donald Trump did for me was expose the swamp
Hmm.
because so many people thought that DC was the answer. The government system is the biggest welfare system in America. That's bottom line. What they don't produce anything. They receive monies from our tax-paid money, and so we have to recognize that American citizens have to take more responsibility to make sure that this country runs the way it's supposed to run. Because the Constitution begins with we the people and not they the government. In Declaration of Independence, that governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. But as Ronald Reagan said, the nine words you can hear is not from the government, I'm here to help.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I've been using his quote a lot lately. Yeah. So talking about a little bit about Donald Trump, just to wrap it up. Like, what do you hope? Like, you and I are on the same page. The civil government is not the answer. We have to take personal responsibility. We have to get dads. You have to take the personal responsibility, get involved in your child's life, in your family's life. You need to get out of. Yeah, I always say we have wedded healthy families with a sick government,
Hmm.
and that makes our families sick. It makes our children sick. It just it's a it really is a woke mind virus, but it is so much more subtle than a lot of people even understand. So what would you like to see, from the federal government, these next 4 years? Like what can they do in a positive direction, and what could our states do that's in a positive direction to and really help us get back on track?
The biggest thing is this, and I had this book has been written about me. It's called Forgotten Courage. America has to go back and get the courage that we once had to continue for this country to grow. We need to understand that it's not what's behind us. In front of us is what's in us because America is based on an idea. And what idea do we have as far as this country is concerned? So we have to be what for people to. It's sort of like the military. I saw my brother put his life on the line during the Korean conflict and almost lost his life, and still came back and served as a policeman for 17 years in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we have to have people that have the courage, the fortitude, and integrity to make the right decision. It's one thing about Donald Trump. He takes the bureaucracy out of it. He makes a decision and he goes finds the best person to carry out that decision. What he found out before was that the people that were around him were the wrong people. And so now what we begin to understand is that in order for us to have a better America, the key operative is the opportunity that America offers. because the free market capitalistic system is such a great opportunity. You can fail your way to success. You had the light bulb, Thomas Edison, 1,000
Right.
times. Then you had Booker T. Washington, that when he was started Tuskegee Institute, then they needed one of the responsibilities of the people there was the kid students there was to help build the building, the buildings they
Mm-hmm.
need to be housed in. And so he didn't have any money to buy bricks, so he started making bricks and failed several times. But then when he got it right, other people wanted to come to him because he had the right bricks. And so once we had an opportunity, because see, uh, when I look at the American opportunity, this is what I see. I don't see the glass half empty. I see it half full. That's the opportunity. And if you put yourself over into that system, whatever comes out belongs to you. And the challenge is we got to stop allowing the government to take most of our money because we work for it. And so where we are at this particular point in time is that, again, I said it before, we have to learn how to vet people. This is not a population contest. It's about who can do the best job. And we need people in these positions that understand business. Donald Trump is why he's doing such a great thing. He was a businessman before he became an elected official. What makes America great is the strength and the power that we have, and we must defend that. And he understands that if we lose the value of the dollar, we've lost everything. Because when I see people going to the grocery store now, they're not looking to see whether or not it has nothing to do with color. They're looking to see the affordability. When I see people looking at going to the gas station, they go to find the cheapest gas. And one other thing I share with you is this: our healthcare system is such a bad system. When you have healthcare, if you had it in the private sector, where you could buy it across state lines, but they have us enslaved in this system that the government says that we're going to keep it at a certain price. Let the system determine the price. Let the people decide because competition drives everything. And so again, I'm still on assignment. Uh, I've been called to do certain things, and uh, because again, one thing I left out is that you asked about the civil rights movement. God took me on the backside of the mountain for 40 years to begin to teach me about how America works. And I was in business for myself, so I began to understand how money works because the money is a game that everybody plays. But most people lose the game because they don't understand how money works. You cannot spend more than you make. Understanding how to keep America prosperous, understanding that some of the things they need to be teaching in our school system, which I'm very well aware of, is budgeting and all those kind of things. So I've had the opportunity to deal with certain things. I'm most known for uh, the civil rights movement, but what I bring to the table is understanding how to live a prosperous life, and there are rules to prosperity. It's not by accident. The rules are is that uh, we have to understand what we stop begging for what we want and start buying what we need. And then the other part of it is that the new civil rights movement is economic empowerment. In the black community, we don't have enough economic power. And what I like in it too is that um, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And economically, who's the weakest link in America? Because we've been taught, blacks have been taught to do great consumers, but not great people being in business for themselves. Understand how it's better if you have the tenacity for it, it's better to make your own way because the best hand you can find is at the end of your own arm. And so I would hope that the legacy I leave is to pass a torch of liberty to the coming generation so they understand what makes America great, understand what we need to do to have a competitive edge, understand that what we do is that, and Western North Carolina is a great example of this. What those people come out and done, not for pay, but to help mankind.
Right.
You can compare Billy Graham versus FEMA. Always on the
Mm,
spot, just like that, because they're caring for people and the people in West. And what happened in Western North Carolina right now is that I'm telling people they can't build back. Where they go? Where are they going to go? Some of these
right.
regulations, like Donald Trump said the other day, you got to let the regulations go right now, as far as that concerned. So you can't build back and build them to make sure it takes care of things that didn't take care of before. And so
Yeah.
we have to continue to fight for our freedom because freedom is never free. There's a price to be paid. It must be paid in full. It must be paid up front.
Amen. Well, Mr. Henderson, so thank you for being a champion of freedom, conservative values, your civil rights activities. If families want to learn more about the Clarence Henderson Education Foundation or have you maybe come speak to them, is there a website they can visit or how do they learn more?
ClarenceHenderson.com. I work with an organization called Faith and Freedom.
Okay. Yep.
And we work together as far as the foundation is concerned. I go across America speaking about various things that need to be done as far as the country is concerned. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to Arizona in March. It'll be my third time out there because I have a message that people need to hear. And
Absolutely.
so where we are right now is that we need to understand what is required. And so ClarenceHenderson.com. And if they want to get the book called Forgotten Courage, they go on the website of North Carolina Faith and Freedom, and it'll tell them how to order the book.
All right. Well, we'll get those links into the show notes. We've had Mr. Henderson speak at our church. It was very eye-opening, and just hearing his story is amazing. Thank you for coming on our podcast today and sharing it with our audience. I hope you go purchase his book, learn more about him. And I love that saying that our freedom must be paid in full and upfront. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that upfront part. And so, we encourage people on our podcast, keep your freedom, fight for your freedom, because absolutely it's not free. And
And
the
I would love to go into more churches to begin to share, and I don't share politically. It's what we as Christians are supposed to be doing. We are the conscience for the entire world. And without Christianity, all would be lost. And unfortunately, we have Christians, the churches allow things to come to the church that shouldn't be there. So we need to change those things. We understand that we are the fourth person when it comes to the hierarchy. You got God, the Father, God, the Son, God, the Holy Spirit, and then there's humanity, mankind. It's not what's on the outside of you, it's what's on the inside of you.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. For all of our listeners, please share this with a friend. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and check out our weekly episodes. So thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortons. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.